All right, let's go ahead and we'll get things going. Is that too loud? No? You're sitting right next to it, it might be, but. All right, it's great to see a lot of some new faces, some that are down from south a little ways and actually not too far. And if you're joining us for the first time tonight, we want to welcome you. It is it's always an honor and a privilege to get to meet you, and anytime we get to know more who are kind of in the beekeeping community, the better. And so it's an honor, it's a privilege for us to be able to try to do what we can to help you in any way. And so tonight, I'm going to just kind of get rolling pretty quick. I've got quite a bit that I want to share with you this evening pertaining to the topics that we have decided to discuss tonight for new beekeepers, and we have several beekeepers in the club that this is your second year, maybe your third year. You're still kind of learning some of the new things that are coming in those next couple of years. And so we'll talk about some of those things as well tonight. Before we do, just some of the things that are coming up as far as the club is concerned. Some of the events that are coming up here shortly are, make sure this thing will work. Excuse me. Toward the end of this month, on April 24th, and if you're watching online, and you are not a member of the Benton County Club, then this is not for you. If you're here tonight and you're not a member of the Benton County Club, this is not for you. This is only for those who have who are members, who paid memberships, and that's our field day. And we're going to be doing that here. We're actually going to be doing it up in my bee yard back up here behind this building, and just talking about hive setup, making sure the site is prepped the way it should be, and not anything real too difficult, but it's some important information as far as knowing, is this a good place for hives? Are there any issues that I need to watch out for? And then also, if we have, I'm going to be looking this Saturday to see the condition of one of my hives up here. I may be making a split off of it, and if I do, I might be making a kind of a nuke that will be an example for those that are getting ready to install their very first bees in their hive, and kind of walk you through the process of doing that. And so, or I might just take some frames out of a hive and we'll pretend we're doing it anyway. Just so you can kind of see the process as you get ready to do yours. And so, but that, it's no cost for those who are members. And then May 6th, that'll be our next monthly meeting. That'll be, we talked about splits last month, but we're going to be talking about it again, kind of a part two, a little bit more, maybe some advanced things with splits and things like that to be thinking about. And then also pest management. June 3rd's meeting, I wanted to go ahead and put that up there because we're going to be having, I'm going to say this right, John Zavishlak. I practiced that all day. John is with the University of Arkansas, teaches in their apiculture department. And he is going to be here as a guest speaker, sharing with us. We're trying to, in our meetings, we're trying to deal with issues that are ahead of what you're going to be dealing with. And so we're not going to get into honey harvest until July or August, most likely. But we're trying to make sure that we're hitting things before you get there. And so we're going to have John come in and speak to us on not just honey harvesting, but bottling, different issues concerning that, even legal issues concerning that, and then marketing. How can you start to market in your area in different ways for the sale of honey. And so it'll be a really, really good talk that he will have to share with us. I want to talk to you a little bit tonight about some online resources that we have before we get into our topic for this evening. One of the things we have been spending a lot of time, so much now is going online, and we're getting a much stronger presence on Facebook. We just this week, just a couple of days ago, we went over 1,100 followers to our Facebook page. That's many hundreds more than we had even a month ago. And that includes people from 11 different countries. And so it's not just Benton County, Arkansas, but it's even around the world that people are kind of watching and using some of the resources and information that we're putting out. So that makes us feel good that we're able to help people all over the place with that type of information. If you have looked at our Facebook page, then you've probably seen a lot of these things. We're trying to do a lot more just practical, useful, helpful things for you as beekeepers, and just a lot of other information as well. But you'll find all of our meeting and event information on the Facebook page. There's beekeeping tips that we're throwing out, just simple tips. I mean, one of them was just recently on how to paint your hives. That sometimes we forget, maybe we don't deal with. I saw somebody on one of the Facebook groups ask the question about what kind of paint and how should I do it and when should I do it, and so just trying to give as much information, even the most basic, simple information as possible. There's a new series of posts that we started called Honey Every Day that is giving all of the benefits of honey, both health-wise and we're actually looking at various diseases and things like that. And it's not just beekeepers saying, take our word for it, honey is good for you and it'll cure everything. We don't believe that. But these are actually things that have scientific studies behind them that they're doing studies on. And so try to add some credibility to some of those findings. So go on there, look for those, and share those with people. That one of them that was recently was diabetics. The benefit of honey for diabetics. How many of you know a diabetic or are one? Every single one of us knows somebody. And so there's just good information that's out there now that actually has science behind it that they're starting to figure a lot of stuff out. It started today, we're calling the Beekeeper Calendar. Each month, the first of the month, will be a post that shows in the month of April. First of all, this would be average year. What are the bees in Northwest Arkansas doing? And what should you as a beekeeper be doing as you're coming into the month of April? What should you be focused on and thinking about? And we'll be doing that at the first of each month. We're also doing a Meet the Keeps. This is and all of you, if you're a member of the Benton County Club, there will probably be a time when you'll get an email that will ask you some questions about yourself, about your bees. If you don't want to and decide to decline, then that's fine. Just let us know. But we want to know who we're spending this time with, just to get to know each other a little bit better. We're starting with all the officers of the club. The first one was myself and my wife. The last one was Sean and Jamie Rogers, who are our vice president and secretary of the club. And so we want you to know more about who we are, our background. Maybe there'll be something in there you go, oh, hey, man, if they can do it, surely I can do it. And just to get to know each other a little better. We got some honey recipes that are starting to go out there. If you have one, if you have a recipe that uses honey, send it to us and we'll put something together. Who knows? We may have the Benton County Beekeepers Cookbook eventually someday. You never know. But there's a lot of stuff. If you are active on Facebook and you have your phone today with you right now, and you are able to go to the Benton County Beekeepers Facebook page, go on there and check in, please. Every time we get somebody to do something like that, acknowledge something that's on the page, or check in, to a meeting or something like along that line, it just, I don't know how all the algorithms work and everything, but it bumps us up so that more and more people are able to see what we're doing. And so that would help us out a lot. Then our latest and most, the thing we've been spending most of our time on here recently, I'm going to share a little bit of this with you, because how many of you have gone and looked through the new website? A few, not everybody. Well, you're about to. Maybe. Or maybe not. Hold on. It didn't want to share it. It worked an hour ago. Here we go. Okay, now let's try it. So this is the new website. The reason I want to show this to you is because this isn't just something throwing out there to try to get people to go visit another lame website. We put a lot of work into this. Sean Rogers is the one who's kind of heading up learning. He's going to be a webmaster before long because of everything he's been learning to do. And we've been working really hard at this. I just want to walk you through some of the things that are on here because this is for you. And there will be eventually a members only section that is going to provide a lot of other options and things for you as members later on. You notice one of the first things, well, here on the front page, this shows the meetings that are coming up. And so ones we just talked about, the one today in April, May's, you can see and what they're going to be about, who the speakers are going to be, those types of things. We're trying to keep more information out there for you. There at the top, you see there's a report a swarm page. It's something that this time of year, we get a lot of calls. And now we have access through our website to be able to report a swarm. They go to our swarm page, and at the top, it tells them, it says, if you're not sure what a honeybee swarm is, continue reading the rest of this page. Because how many of you beekeepers have gotten that call that there's a swarm of honeybees and they weren't honeybees? Yeah, everybody who's been keeping bees for at least a year. Mine was last year with my 10-year-old son, and it was yellow jackets, and my son paid the price. And so we want to educate people. Now, if they know that it's a swarm of honeybees, all they have to do is click this swarm report link, and it'll take them to the bottom, and they can skip all this. But it shows them, this is what it looks like, this is what they don't look like. That's a bumblebee, that's a yellow jacket, that's a paper wasp, that's a bald-faced hornet. And there's some information about cutouts because somebody may have had a swarm move into their house. And this is actually a picture of a cutout that JR and Sean and I did out of an apartment complex in Bentonville last summer. And so just some information on that. But they can fill out this form. I have a swarm of honeybees on my tree in my backyard. Fill it out, send us information, tells them how to describe it to us, how far off the ground are they, all those kinds of things so that we know what we need when we get there. And we require at least 2 pictures. That's the most helpful thing is when we can get a picture. They can't even submit the form unless they upload at least 2 pictures to it. If they aren't able to do this, they can always call us on the phone and let us know too. But monthly meetings, I don't need to go over that. You can see the past ones. Last month's meeting, the video of last month's meeting is on there, archived if you want to go back and see that one. Now this is where it gets fun. The resources, one thing, we are taking a lot of this from the Montgomery County Beekeepers Association in Montgomery County, Maryland. We have been on the phone with some of the people with that club and got permission to be able to borrow some of the stuff that they had put together. And so this was one of those things that we borrowed from them. And it's a glossary of terms. How many times have you heard one of us say something, or you've watched a YouTube video or something, and there's a word or something that they're talking about, you're like, I don't even know what that is. I'm brand new to beekeeping, I'm not sure what that's talking about. There's I think there's 111 terms that are here that just are beekeeping related, and so that resource is there to use. This is one I am thrilled about the most because I've had more involvement with this one than the other pages. And that is our learning page. This learning page is just full of links. So there at the very beginning, there's different beekeeping magazines if you want to become a subscriber to any of those. There's online forums. So if you want to go on and ask a question to a beekeeping online forum, click on the link, type in your question, and there will be all kinds of people with their wisdom telling you what you should do. Then come all of the videos. And these are all linked to videos. If I click on a video, it just simply links me directly to YouTube and to that video that we have linked. And so we categorize these by topic. So you've got honeybee biology, swarming, nutrition, beginner beekeepers. Those of you that are beginner beekeepers, we've gone through and found a lot of videos that are just really good for brand new beginner beekeepers. Doing splits, honey extraction, pests, parasites, and diseases. There's a lot of those. Hive inspections, things dealing with queens. And there's seasonal topics, spring, summer, and fall and winter. Those different issues that are happening for beekeepers and all those different times of year. Different types of hives, top bar hives, long Langstroth hives, flow hives, Apamay hives. And then we have linked online courses that universities all over the country have made available for beekeepers to go and take their courses online. Some of them are free and some of them are not. The last two you see are actually University of Florida and Cornell University. They are master beekeeper courses. So if you have in mind the idea of wanting to become a master beekeeper and have that credential to your name, it's not easy. I've looked through it. I hope one day to be able to go through it, but it's not an easy process. Matter of fact, you can't even start the program until you've been a beekeeper for at least 5 years, and then the qualification for it is very, very rigorous, and not everybody that goes through it passes. And so to become a master beekeeper is a challenge, but we've got those resources there if you want to take a look at it and go through it. At the bottom of each page, some of you who've been to our website have done this, where we have our new email list. This is a brand new thing that we've added for anybody that wants information of what's going on within the club. That's pretty much it. The contact us page basically does what you've seen every other contact us page, except we have linked the report of swarm, and then there's also a link for you. If there is a speaker that you have heard or you would like to come and present something for the Benton County beekeepers at a class, a meeting, a conference of some kind, then request it. Click on that link and you can request it. I'd love to have David from Barnyard Bees or somebody like that to come and give a talk, or Cayman Reynolds or one of those guys that are famous on YouTube. Link it, and we will reach out to them. We'll see if we might be able to get something with somebody along that line. But that's the website. There's more coming. There's a page that's coming that new beekeepers, you need to know your state laws concerning beekeeping. You need to know your county laws. You need to know your city laws, because each city is different. You need to know if you are in where there's a homeowner association, you need to know the guidelines within your homeowner association, because some of them are different. And we have a page that's coming that hopefully, if it works right, you'll be able to click on a map right on your location, and it will pull up your state, county, city, maybe even, if we dig deep enough, even within your neighborhood, that you'll need to know. And so we are trying to provide a wealth of information for you. We want this to be as valuable for you as a beekeeper as possible. So give us your recommendations too. You say something for a website, this would be a great thing. Something that was mentioned just yesterday to us was a place for members to be able to connect with each other as far as buying equipment or sharing things or borrowing things, that type of thing. And so we're working on a lot of different things. Okay, enough of that promotion. I spent way too much time doing that. Our topic tonight, talking about Hive. That if I've got a problem, what if there's chalk brood? All these things, you're learning. How do I recognize all of these things? You're learning how to find the queen. Every new beekeeper, when they go into their hives, every time they want to put eyes on their queen. I still like to see my queens. I don't have to every time, but when you're brand new You want to make sure, I want to make sure she's okay. I want to make sure she's healthy. I want to make sure she's alive. You want to see your queen, because we know no queen, no bees. No queen, everything's going to fall apart. And so as a new beekeeper, I recommend again, when you go in, look for your queen, because there is a day coming when you're going to need to find her. There's something that you're going to be doing with your colony one of these days that you're going to need the practice of finding a queen. Now, she's marked, makes it a little bit easier, but if she's not, then you're just becoming an even better beekeeper, because you're training your eyes to find that one bee amongst 50,000. And so look for her. See if you can find her. You don't need to mess with her. Yes?
You lost sound on the live stream.
Okay. My live stream guy's not here. It says I'm still good. It says I'm still going. Hopefully it'll work. So you need to get used to finding her. And there will be a day come when you go into a hive, pull out a frame, I look and I see eggs, everything looks healthy, I put the frame back and I'm done. You're 20 seconds into a hive inspection, you're done. I don't need to see any more. When you're new, that's not the way it'll be. That's not the way it should be. You need to take more of a time. Here's what you focus on though. You focus on 3 things. And I've kind of termed this my own way. You look for brood, food, and mood. Those 3 things, that's what you're looking for. If you just keep that in your mind when you're doing a hive inspection, just think, I'm looking for the brood, the food, and the mood. So when we talk about brood, we're talking about all kinds of the brood. I'm looking for eggs. Do I see eggs? If I see eggs, I know, well, the queen, she was at least here at least 3 days ago. If I see eggs standing straight up off the bottom of the cell, I know she was here at least a day ago, probably today. And so that tells you a lot about your queen, just seeing that. But when you're new, start looking, watch the egg. Is it standing straight up? That means it's a 1-day-old egg. Is it starting to lay over into the bottom of the cell? That means it's a 2-day-old egg. Is the egg starting to curl just a little bit in the bottom of the cell? It's not a larva yet, but the egg starting to curl. That usually indicates it's about 3 days old. And so that tells you a lot just by looking at the egg. And then on day 4, actually day 3.5 to day 4, it will hatch into a larva. And now look at the larva. Look and see what age of larva you have. Is it just a little teeny tiny curled up little worm looking thing down the bottom? And notice, does it have food around it? That white jelly around it to keep it fed and healthy? Are they doing good feeding? I'm looking at my larva and then look how they get bigger in different areas. These big old fat plump larvae that are getting ready to be capped over so that they can pupate. What about your capped brood? What does it look like? Is the pattern good? Is it a solid pattern? Maybe with just a few holes here and there where the queen missed, or maybe the queen didn't miss. A lot of people don't realize that spots in brood are not necessarily that the queen missed laying there, but the hygienic bees, if they notice something was wrong with a larva, maybe it wasn't fed very well, maybe it had some kind of a parasite or a disease or something that they recognize is not right, they'll pull it out and discard it. And so sometimes the spots in brood are from that. Now, if you have big patches of spotty brood all over the place, you've probably got some type of an issue with your queen. She's not laying very good. And so that's telling you something. You're learning something about your queen. What about drones? How much drone brood do you see? Is there a lot, an overabundance? Is there just a little bit? Is there none? All those types of things, again, tell you things about what's going on in your hive. So we look for brood, we look for food. What I am looking for first is what's happening on my brood frames. So when I have a frame of brood, I put a picture, yeah. When I have a frame of brood, I'm looking to see what kind of food is on that frame. And this is a picture of the perfect brood frame. Because what you're seeing is all the capped brood here in the center, and then right around the edge, it's hard to see it, it's a row of pollen, and then on the upper corners is honey that's been stored. If you see that, man, they're doing good. She's got a good brood pattern, not very many holes in that pattern. There's pollen and honey right there. Everything the nurse bees need to take care of the brood is right there on the frame. Beautiful thing to see. Is that not what you see? Is there not any pollen on the frame? Is there not any honey on the brood frames? Might begin to be an indicator that I might need to feed my bees, put some sugar water out and begin feeding. Kind of depends on what's going on in the rest of the hive. So if there's not any on those, and I go into the outer frames and I realize there's not any honey on any of these outer frames either, then that definitely is beginning to tell me that there's a problem. I need to start feeding. I need to start doing something to help them out. Same with pollen. I start looking out through all the pollen. I begin to realize there's not any. I don't see any. Maybe I need to put out some pollen substitute to help them out. Just some of those things that you're looking for. Brood, food, and mood. We talk a lot of times to new beekeepers about when you first approach your hive, what is the mood of the bees? What's their temperament at that time? And so as I like to look at it the other way around. What was their temperament when you were done with your inspection? Because most colonies of bees, they're pretty calm when you first get there. It's after somebody starts rummaging around inside their house that they decide that they want to get upset. So their mood when you leave can tell you a lot. One, it can tell you if you did a very good job at your inspection. Because did you drop a frame, stir them all up? Did you squish a bunch of bees where alarm pheromone went out? Was there something that you did? Did you bang on the box and something that just was I not being a very good beekeeper and doing my inspection? Their mood can sometimes answer that. Not always. You may have done everything perfect, and they still get a little testy. I've got colonies up here on the hill that I can rummage through them and bring frames in and out all day long, and they stay calm and they don't care a bit. Then I've got another one that's pretty good. It's calm at first, but after about 10 or 15 minutes of having the top off, they don't like it. They want the top back on, and they let me know it. And so they're different. But you begin to learn those types, even between separate hives, how they will act. And so their mood can tell you a lot of things. Even when you first approach the hive, if they're real loud and they're making a lot of noise even before you take the top off, you may know what that possibly could mean. What one of the first indicators might be.
Queen problem.
It's a queen problem. Most likely they don't have one. And you know that right away. After this winter, something happened during the winter and I lost one of my queens. And the first time I went to that hive, as soon as I popped the top off, it was just this buzz, this loud hum that was different than all the rest of them. And I knew right away, probably got a queen problem. After I went through it, I realized I didn't have a queen at all. And so their mood is something that's very, very important. While you're doing your inspections, how do you do the inspection? That's how you do the inspection. When you're beginning, go slow. Take your time. You're not in a hurry. Most people who are beginning, you're not starting with 150 hives. You've probably got one or two, maybe as many as 7 or 8 or 10. But it's not something that's going to take all day to do. So take your time. Going slow, paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to their mood, paying attention to anything that's going on the outside of the hive, and just take your time. When you get the lid off, go slow. Just real easy. One thing that I try to do as much as possible is use as little smoke as possible. There are many times in my bee yard where I don't use the smoker at all. Now, I always have it ready. I never go into my bee yard without a smoker if I'm getting into the hives, because you just never know when you might need it. But there are a lot of times that I never use it. I'm able to go through my colonies and do my inspections, and I never have an issue where I need to get them settled back down. And so if you don't have to use it, they don't like it. It does help calm them down. It does help settle the bee yard down if you need it. But they don't like it. They think there's a fire. They think their home's going to burn down. And so they go into instinctive mode dealing with that. And so, but if you don't have to use it, it's better off for everybody. They've been using smoke for thousands of years with bees. So we know it works, but it's not necessary all the time. When you're doing your inspection, I didn't bring a box in here with me. Start when you open the lid, take your lid off, you take your inner cover off, and I'm looking to see if my queen is on my inner cover. Very rarely is she. But I'm going to look because I'm about to throw my inner cover down here on the ground, and I don't want my queen getting tossed on the ground. And so I'm going to look and just real quick glance over it, any of the bees that are on it, and see if she's on there. If she's not, I'll lean my inner cover a lot of times up next to the front entrance, close on the side, so that the bees on there can get inside if they want to. And then I'm going to pry loose the second frame in the hive. So you never work the hive from inside, from the front. You don't want to stand in front of the entrance. Now, it's kind of a cool thing to do. If you stand in front of the entrance, those that are beekeepers, what happens if you stand in front of the entrance? You get a traffic jam. And I didn't know this until the first time I did it. And I was standing in front of it looking at the hive, and I turned around, and there were hundreds and hundreds of bees just doing figure eight behind me because they didn't know where to go. I was standing in front of their entrance. They didn't recognize me being in front of their entrance. And it was cool. As soon as I stepped out of the way, it was just this, whoom, they all went to the entrance all at once. It's kind of fun to do, just to watch it happen. But the either stand from the side or the back and pry loose that second frame. The reason we're doing that is because when I pull my frame out of the hive, if I'm pulling it on the side next to the box on the outside, if I pull that up, there's a little bit less space there, and it's possible for me to roll a bee or more, or several of them. And if you roll them and squish them, all of a sudden there's an alarm pheromone that goes out. Your hive inspection's already in trouble before you get started. And so I start with that second frame where I pry that second frame open, and then I very slowly, that's our key word, pull it straight up. It's like you're playing Operation as a kid. Pull it straight up, not touching the sides. And when you get it out, then you can slowly begin to turn it and to look at either side of that frame. Now, most likely, usually, the queen is not on those outer frames. Sometimes she is, but I'm looking to see if she's there. If she is there, then I'm not going to set her outside of the hive. I've seen some guys do that, and it may be okay. I'm not going to. I want to make sure my queen stays inside. Usually, she's not there, and so I'll take that frame. I know she's not there, and I'll set it there on the outside by the side of the entrance of the hive, again, so those bees can climb back in the entrance if they want to. And now I've got me a space that's a lot wider. So now I can pull that third frame out and have a lot more room to be able to pull frames out. And when I'm done with that one, I set it back in and pull it close to me. And then I've got that same space as I go frame by frame by frame, looking at each one. And I'm looking for my queen, I'm looking for brood, I'm looking for food, and I'm watching their mood. Because as I'm watching their mood, there might be a point when I need to start adding some smoke, if I need it. And so you're watching, keeping an eye on all those things. This, I put on there, this is one of my things. This is not something that is a requirement, and this is not something that anybody should ever think that, well, I'm not a very good beekeeper if I can't do this. You do what you are comfortable with. If you need to be dressed from head to toe in a hazmat suit and everything else that you can possibly think of, and duct tape your pant legs and your sleeves and your neckline, and what, if that's what you need to do, then that's what you do. You protect yourself in the way that you're comfortable with. It was recommended to me, and some of you guys that have been in the club for a while, maybe you'll help me to remember his name. I don't know what his name was. He was one of the old-timer beekeepers that last time I saw him was probably 3 years ago. But after a meeting, standing around talking, he made the comment to me. He said, you need to try to learn to go through your hives without gloves. He said, because the bees will make you a better beekeeper. And they will. They will teach you. If you're going too fast and you're careless and you reach around the back of a frame and she's there and you squeeze her, and she's going to let you know that she was there. And you're going to remember for the next couple of days that she was there. And it's just one of those things of, when I started doing this, I started noticing myself. I started noticing my bees actually being a lot better with me, because my gloves, a lot of times I was a little more careless. I didn't take my time. And it doesn't mean you can't take your time and be good wearing gloves. I don't want anybody to come away thinking that. But if you are willing to start moving that direction, it took me a little while to do it. But if you're willing to do it, there's times I'll sit there and I'll be holding on to one end of the frame over here, and I sit there sometimes for a long time waiting for her to move so I can get a hold of that frame right there, and she just won't move, and I'm just waiting and waiting. But it gives me a chance to stop and to slow down, pay attention to what I'm doing, and we shouldn't be in a rush and a hurry as we're going through our hives anyway. And so this is a Steve's recommendation. You may not hear this ever from anyone else, but it's something that I've learned, and I'm glad that I was told that by an old-timer beekeeper that gave me that advice. Then log your visit. You can log your visit on paper, or what I've used the last couple of years is an app. I've used the app B+. I like it, but I'm going back to paper this year because on the app, there's some things I can have a Hive inspection open that I'm logging, but then I wanted to see something that happened in the last time I was there, and I've got to close that one out and go over to that one and open that one up, and back and forth. I like to be able to have my notebook that has all my Hive inspections in it so that I can open it up and then I can just see right there back and forth where what took place the last time or the last 2 or 3 times in my hive, and do it instantly. I have not been good at keeping records with Hive inspections. This year is my goal is to change that. I have made up a Hive inspection sheet that if you want a copy of it, you're free to have one. I've looked at a bunch of different ones and kind of put together my own. And so you may or may not like what is on here, but it has everything that I could think of that I want to know about as I'm going through my hives. And so find some way to keep record and track of what's happening with each of your hives. Okay, now you are a second-year survivor. You made it through winter, and your bees are still alive. That's a good feeling, especially if it's your first year. There's a lot of first-year beekeepers that's when they quit, is when they lose all their bees that first year, and I can't do this, and they don't realize that the guy sitting there in the beekeeping meeting with them that's been beekeeping for 50 years, he lost all of his 1 year too, maybe even that same year. And so it's a success when they've survived. So now what? You're starting a new year, and it's not just a nuke of 5 frames of bees anymore. It's filling up half of a hive. It is a 10 frame, maybe 20 frame hive that has bees that now are building up and they're growing fast, and now what do I do? So if you're a newbie and this is your first year, this is what's coming next year. But there are some here that are in their second year and they're getting ready to go through this. And so hive inspections, when do you do them? Now a minimum of 7 days between your hive inspections, 7 to 10 days max. And reason for that is because when we get into this time of year that we're just getting into right now, we're getting into swarm season. And if I do not time it right, I can lose my bees to a swarm. And so if you think about the timing, let's say I just did my hive inspection, I put the lid on, they are already in their minds beginning the swarming process even while I was doing my inspection. This is day 1. As soon as I put the top on there, they start to draw out queen cells. So as they begin, they may be drawing out 20 queen cells throughout that hive. And as they're doing that, for the first 3 days, those eggs they're just going to be an egg. But then 5 days later, they're going to be capped over. Day 8 for a queen is when it's capped. And so here I am. I didn't see any queen cells. I saw some cups. I wasn't too worried about it, but they decided to use those cups as soon as I got done. And now I don't go back and look at my hive for 2 weeks. It's 14 days. That means my queen, those new queen cells in there are only 2 days away from hatching. So I'm about to have this rumble in the comb between these queens, and most likely by day 14, my hive's already swarmed. Usually a day or 2, sometimes even 3 before the queen cells hatch. That's when the queen will leave with half of your bees. Now, half of your workforce that was going to be there to produce honey for you this summer is gone. And so the timing is important. And so going in on a very regular basis, at least once a week, of going in and just checking, I'm looking for swarm cells, I'm looking to see if there's anything that is going to be a sign that they may be getting ready to swarm. Again, you're in a process of learning. You're not learning the first year stuff, starting with a nuke and building out a whole hive and growing it like that. You are now in the second year of something you've never dealt with before. Now I have a whole hive and they're planning to swarm on me. This is a whole new world. So you're still in a learning process. You've been beekeeping for a long time, you're still in a learning process, but it's different when you're at the very beginning of it all. You're learning, deciphering coming out of winter, the health of your colony. What do they look like? Is there any disease? You're looking at their poop. You're looking to see if it's streaked all out around and even inside on the frames. If so, that's a problem. There's a nosema problem, most likely. There's something going on. You're just trying to learn, what does it look like? What's it supposed to look like when I'm coming out of a winter? And every winter is different. Not every winter has minus 20 degrees like we had this year. Every winter is different. And so you're learning that process of what to look for. You're learning how to analyze their food supplies. You've never gone through a winter before. So now you're coming into spring. By this point now, we're fairly safe as far as food is concerned. February and March is a scary time because we think, oh, they came through winter, they're doing good, they're doing great. And if we don't pay attention to their food supplies, you can actually lose your bees. I think more are lost in those 2 months than during the hardest months of winter. Now you're looking for the signs of swarming. You are looking to see how much room does the queen have. Does she have room to lay? Have they filled the whole thing? Is it still full of honey going through winter? And she's only got a couple of frames to be able to lay in, and she's already got those laid up. If it's full, even though there's not a large number of bees in there, that could still put them into swarm mode because she just doesn't have enough room to lay at that point. You learn really fast, your second year, how quickly that capped brood will multiply the numbers in your hive. You look in there 1 week and you got 4 frames of capped brood. You're like, oh man, they're doing good. And you don't process the whole thing realizing that in less than 12 days, I'm going to be probably doubling the size of my colony coming out of winter. They've kind of decreased in size a little bit. Now there are tens of thousands that are getting ready to be born in the next 12 days at least, and what that's going to do to your colony. And so again, it's being on top of it and ready for it when it comes. You're watching for those swarm cells, the queen cells, and you can't miss them. Well, you can miss them, but if you do, it's going to be problems. When you're looking for swarm cells, you're looking at the bottom of your frames to see if they're drawing them off the bottom. Those are indications of swarming. If they're drawing them up further up on the frame in the comb, it can still mean swarm cells, but usually that's more of an indication of supersedure, that they are trying to replace their queen for some other reason. You're keeping an eye for those cells to see how they're drawing them out. And there can be a big cluster of bees covering one. And if you don't look through everything, and even maybe with a bee brush or something, brush them off the bottom of the frame to make sure that you check everywhere, you could miss one. And if you do, they're going to swarm on you and you're going to miss it. How do I approach this now in my second year? You're into a position now where you are actually beginning to manipulate your hives. We're not hurting the bees, we're actually helping them. But you're manipulating things now. We're using their natural instincts to help them help us. And so you're doing things like you're going to, if you say you have 2 hives, one made it through winter really strong and they're growing, they're busting at the seams. Over here you've got one, they're barely hanging on. They're still there. The queen's, she's laying, she seems to be okay, but it's just really small. They're struggling. There's not a lot of food. So what I may need to do, this one over here, I'm maybe close to swarming because they're so full. And so what I can do is I can take some frames of brood. I would love to take some good capped brood, maybe even 2 or 3 frames from them if they can handle that, and take them and put them over here. Because when those baby bees are born, they don't care if they came from another hive. And what you just did was you just gave this hive a boost. Now, all of a sudden, they have this big growth all of a sudden within, if it's capped brood, within maximum of 12 days, you just maybe doubled their size. Now, you knocked this one down a little bit, and that's okay because you're trying to keep them from swarming. And so we're trying to balance out our hives. If you can go into the honey flow with your hives as evenly balanced as possible, that's the best. And so there's things that we can do to manipulate what's in a hive or in multiple hives to help us to get through some of those problems. You can make splits. You say, well, I only had one survive, but it's busting at the seams. I don't have another hive to put some in over here and share some of the brood. Well, it's time to make a split. Get that 5-frame nuke that you got your bees in last year and move 3 frames of brood with the nurse bees and everything over into that. Get frames of honey and pollen and put in there with it. And if you want to, even, we talked about this was last week, talking about splits. You can move that queen over into that box. And the ones over here in this hive, they'll re-queen or order you a queen that's already mated, introduce her to that hive, and you're up and going. Now you've got 2 hives. And you're back to where you were last year with a nuke. getting started over again with 5 frames of bees, and you just made your first split. And so that's one way to help take some of the pressure off of this big hive over here that might swarm because they're too full. Checkerboarding is another thing that we do. It's better to kind of draw you a picture. In the bottom box, my brood box, I've got 6 frames of brood. I've got 4 frames of honey on the outside. This is a good looking colony. They're strong, they're healthy, they're looking good, but they're getting close to that point of swarming. So I need to give them more space. And so what I do is I bring in another box. And so what I'm going to do, this is either, if you have drawn comb, if you're in your first or second year, you just don't have drawn comb yet. It's one of the hardest things as a new beekeeper to not have drawn comb. You don't realize how valuable it is until you do have it. And so it's probably just going to be foundations or starter strips or something that you're putting into this box. But they're empty frames. And so what you're doing is this. Now, there's all kinds of different ways that people do checkerboarding. This is just kind of a general sense of what you're doing. And so I'm moving the brood, and you notice I said a minute ago, you have to be careful with the temperature when you do this, because you don't want to break up this brood too much if it's going to get cold, or else you're going to chill your brood. You'll kill your brood. And so you got to be careful with some of this when you do it. But you notice here, I've just moved 3 of those brood frames up to that top box, and I've staggered in all the empty frames in both boxes. Now, what I do personally is I move my honey frames in next to the brood. That's the second time. Is that hey, you're done. Well, my mic's on. I don't know if they'll be able to hear me at all now. So I like to have my honey in there next to the brood. I want my food as close to the brood as it possibly can get. Okay, I missed it. I missed the swarm cell. Something happened. I took too long to get back in my box. What do? They swarmed on me. Sean made me one of these that was actually in my other vehicle, no iPad, so I didn't forget to bring it. But there's a thing called a Russian scion or scion. There any guys that have used one of these before? Anyone? Did it work?
Yes.
Good. I hear some that say they built them and they couldn't get them to work, and others that say they love them and they work great. And so this is what it is. There's different ways of building it, but when they swarm, they are going to look, the queen's going to land somewhere, and they're all going to cluster up around the queen. Usually, it's in a tree. Hopefully, it's not 60 feet up in a tree somewhere. Hopefully, it's on that nice little crepe myrtle out in the backyard, 3 feet off the ground. That's ideal. But what we're trying to do is give them something that's a little bit more attractive to land on the first time. Because they're going to land and cluster while they're sending scout bees out looking for a new home. And so when they find a place that's suitable, then they'll leave that cluster and they'll go to their new home. So we're trying to get that primary landing spot to be in my bee yard. I want it to be as close to my bee yard as possible so that when she comes out, she's attracted to landing there. So this guy, he just used a frame. He used a frame that has bee smell on it. It's got comb on it, and so it's something that is going to be attractive, and he's just mounted it to the bottom of a hive lid. And so that's what this guy did. Here's one you see it work. This one worked. This was just a stick that was screwed to the top of another hive lid and then raised up into the air. And it was dipped in beeswax and some of the slum gum, the dark stuff that comes off of wax when you melt it down. It has that strong beehive smell to it. And so it actually works. So this way, how easy is it to capture the swarm if you have one of these and it works? It's that easy. Put your box down underneath the lid, lower it down, put the bees in the box, you got your swarm. That's if it works. So Sean made one for me to bring. It's actually a bucket lid, 5-gallon bucket lid with a stick that's screwed to the bottom of it. And so if you hoist that up, if you can get them to land on that stick, then all you gotta do is lower that swarm down into your bucket, put the lid on the bucket, take it over, put it in a box, in a hive box. And so this is maybe I can catch them the easy way if I lose one to a swarm. If not, this is what's gonna happen. And it might be a long way away from your yard. You might not ever even see them, but they're gonna land somewhere. And as you can see, they will land just about anywhere. And so this is when we get the calls that there's a swarm of bees, can somebody come get them? And anybody who's been beekeeping for very long, they will quit their job to leave and go and catch a swarm of bees, just about. It's pretty exciting to catch a swarm. So always have swarm gear ready. What does that mean? Always have a box. The back of my van, back of my truck, during swarm season, there is always a box of some kind. It might be a nuke, it might be a thin frame box, it might be a paper box. I don't care what it is. I'm going to have a box that I can close up, that I'm going to be able, if I get a swarm call, I'm going to be able to put them in this box and be able to take them home. You might want a veil. Great thing about swarms is it's the most gentle you'll ever find bees. However, you may still feel more comfortable having a veil on, even gloves. If they land on the bumper of that car or on that fire hydrant, you may be scooping them up with your hand and dumping them into your box. So gloves are a good thing to have with you. Pair of clippers, hedge clippers or limb loppers of some kind, even hand pruners, always good. Is that cluster that is on that branch of that crepe myrtle. The easiest way to catch these swarms is just to grab that branch, clip the branch without shaking it, knocking the bees off, and then just setting that cluster, branch and everything, down into the box, close it up, take it home, dump it into a hive box. When they get a little bit higher, your guys have put a bucket on the end of a pole, and so they'll raise that bucket up and just put the cluster in that bucket. They'll jam it up into the branch, knocking the bees into the bucket, bring the bucket down, put the lid on the bucket, take them home. It sounds easy, doesn't it? It's not always that simple. But that's the process. I think this one, the guy actually he's put 2 frames of comb in the bucket to attract the bees to climb down onto the bucket instead of jam, because sometimes they're on the trunk of the tree. You can't shake the trunk of the tree. And so I've seen several guys actually who have used comb frames, and they'll put up there right next to the cluster, and they will walk down onto it. And if they will do that and be nice for you, then that's an easier way to get them to. So I think,
Excuse me.
that's all I got.
I had a swarm while the inspector was there last year. And it was so funny. He took the frame out of one of the boxes, and it was in a tree right next to where he was inspecting.
Right.
And he laid that frame in the tree, and the bees got on the frame, and he just took the frame, put it in the box, put another frame up there. They got on it. He took that one. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that. I usually cut the branch off and put the branch in, like you said.
Yep.
But he just kept putting frames up there till we got them all.
Yeah, it'll work. They're attracted to that bee smell.
Yeah.
And so it'll work. Any other questions? Thoughts, concerns? I went over a lot of stuff.
During the field day, recommend hearing out for
I would recommend, since we're going to be in my bee yard, if you're going to come to the field day, then bring your suit or your jacket, or at least a veil, whatever you're comfortable with. We may take the time to even look through some hives and things like that. If there's some of our newer keepers that want to kind of look in and maybe get a little practice before they get their bees. I did get word that Patrick, because I've had several ask me, he did mention if you are getting nukes from him, that they should be available and ready around May 1st. And so there's always a list, and so those will be the first ones coming off, most likely, and so it might be a few days after that for some others. But that's the word that I got for when he thinks that they're going to begin to be ready. So that's good news. Draw numbers back there. Get your tickets out.
Get numbers ready for you to draw.
Yeah, you need to let me draw. You draw your own numbers.
Only one. Right.
Okay, 973-1648. 648. All right. You know what? Just take your ticket back there to either Jamie or Brad, and they will take care of you. We got our winner right here, Brad. Right. Okay. No other questions? Complaints? I was going to turn those over to Jamie back there. It's great to have everybody here with us, and like I said, take advantage of some of these things. If you have a topic or a speaker or someone that something you would like to hear about, let us know. As we sit around at board meetings and try to come up with, well, we think this would be a good thing to talk about this time of year, but that might not be what you need right now. And so let us know if there's anything that we can do to help make this better for you. And that's all I got.
You're gonna have a Monday this Saturday?
No, it is April 24th. That'll be for members of the club here. It'll be right here. We'll go up into my bee yard back here, and I don't have a whole lot of hives up there right now, but it'll be a good place for us to feel. Got some slant to it and everything to kind of figure out what's the best way to. I may have you digging holes and helping set up my next hive stand, because I don't want to do it. That will probably be. We usually start about. Well, inside. Probably 9 a.m. What's that? We'll let everybody know. We'll put word out, both Facebook or if you're on the email list, go on the website, go to the bottom of the page, get on that email list so that you can get all the updates and everything from it. We are really trying to move more toward the online, even with membership and things like that. Where right now memberships still fill out a piece of paper and hand it back to us. We're really trying to move that direction. I know it's a challenge for some people, but it makes it a lot easier on the people who are doing all of the organizing and everything. So we will let you know if and when changes like that are going to happen. Anything else?
If you're on the membership list, I'll be sending out an email with date, time, location, and again, what we're going to be doing for member only field day.
Will you also add the event to the Facebook because,
No, because it's for members only, so we don't want anyone who's not a member to come for a member only event. So it'll be sent by email.
All right. That's all I got. You want to hang around and chat and ask questions? Feel free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Best meeting I've ever attended.
Good.
Yeah.
Hive inspection sheets. Feel free to grab one.
Hey,
I'm going.
does your mic usually do that when the battery runs out?
Yeah.
I can look at, usually during the squelch down, it's picking up extra frequencies on that. I can turn that down.
It's the same time. Yeah.
Let me look at it. Sure. Because I know it freaks people out.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Excuse me.
Don't know.
I've just now done this because I have to get more organized. And I think some of the problems I've had with some of the hives is because I wasn't. So I've got all my hives labeled, numbered, and everything now. So when I go through, after each hive, I stop, pull this out, and just go through it. I used to go through all of them and then go back on my and try to remember everything from and it takes, I don't like that. It frustrates me because it takes me time to do it. But Brad was the one that when I was at he would stop. He would make notes of that hive. And I was just like, that is the right way to do it.
So I will look at a list of and see
The battery's dead now, so I don't think I have any.
It's picking up RF from another source. So.
Oh, really? Big. Huh. I don't know yet if they can last I heard from Denny was just that they were talking to Rob and he was recommending. So kind of doubt that they had made it yet.
But we do have a couple of more people that don't have mentees that are mentors, so I'll
Was that first or second?
send it out to our mentor list and say, hey, is anybody able to take?
Rebecca Winter surgery to tomorrow.
Send it out to
Broken wing. Yeah, she put pictures of the X-rays on Facebook.
Should be good now.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, they're snap clean.
Thank you.
One of them snap clean and then comes fractured back the same bone back for her. So it's. Russell said it's gonna be a pretty extensive surgery though, just because it's a whole loose piece in there and they've got to reattach it both ends, so. Probably. Who knows, blue, Yeah. I've done that 3 times. Better than she was. All I can do is, if you ask her, she won't tell you. She's fine. My dad finally, I've been talking to Mom. My dad got polio when he was little. And we messed up his life right. So as he's gotten older, that's why he had to retire farming because he couldn't find the equipment. And for the last 5 years, he's told me, he says, I just feel like I'm walking on a wooden stump. So like nothing's there. And I've been talking to Mom.
I was in here.
Doesn't even walk. I knew that he wouldn't want to do that. And I talked to him 3 days ago, and he said, Mom said you've been talking to her about some kind of chair. I think we need to start looking into something. He said, I told her I'd get one if she'd get one. I said, I think that's a great idea.